is 7 o'clock, so I think I'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to our webinar this evening. Our title is Tips from the Trenches, Managing a School Library. My name is Amy Brownlee. I am the district librarian for Sterling Public Schools. Sterling is a little town right in the center of Kansas. We're about half an hour from Hutchinson. It's hard for me to believe this, but I have been the librarian here for 20 years. I got hired to teach in Sterling right out of college. I spent 3 years teaching middle school English language arts. And then at that time, I started working on my Master of Library Science degree through Emporia State and transitioned over into the library. And I have really loved my career as a librarian. So over the course of 20 years, I've gathered a nice variety of resources, and I don't know that I have the best way to do things, but I definitely have some tools and things that have worked for me. And so that's what I'm here to share with you this evening. So a lot of these things I have gathered from lots of different places. I have learned from my colleagues across Kansas and in different areas. And I am happy to be able to kind of pay that forward by sharing things with you today. So my goal is that when you're finished hearing this presentation today, I hope that you will have at least something that you can say, oh, that's a great idea, or hey, I could maybe use this in my program. I want to say a big thank you to Emporia State University and KASL for sponsoring our webinar this evening. And Martha House has graciously offered to monitor the chat portion of our webinar. So as we go through the webinar, if you have a question, you could go ahead and type that in the chat, and Martha's going to monitor that and let me know if there's something that we need to stop and address. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So I have organized the presentation through Google Slides, and I'm going to just kind of walk through the Google Slides. And within the slides, I have embedded quite a few links to different resources. Some of them might be links to documents or spreadsheets or different things that I use. And so when our webinar is over, we will be posting the link to the archived webinar, and also I'll be posting my presentation. So afterwards, you will be able to go back to the presentation, and if there were any particular resources that you were interested in, you will be able to go back and access those, look at them more carefully, print them off. Some of them are templates that you could use to customize for your school or your library. So this gives our description of the presentation. So when Martha asked if I would give a webinar, we kind of settled on the topic of library management. And I really think of library management as kind of the hidden jobs that you do in the library that most people don't really realize you do. Obviously, you love books. You read books to kids, you teach kids lessons, you help kids with research, you check things in and out. But the management side is really the kind of behind the scenes task. And of course, we all know as budgets shrink, we have to do more with fewer resources. And for those of us who have been around a while, we may have fewer staff members than we did in the past. And so that means that we really have to be smart about how we use our time and how to use our resources. So hopefully I've gathered some tips together for you that might help you do your job a little bit more efficiently, and that will just give you more time to better serve your patrons. So I really wanted to focus on 4 areas: personnel and operations, managing the collection, communications and marketing, and lifelong learning. So those are the 4 different areas that I focused on. I'm curious, are there any specific topics that you are really wanting to hear about today? Is there anything you really wanted to focus on? Okay, if there's no specific requests, I will just go ahead and plan on running through my prepared material here. So I started off thinking about what is really the definition of a manager. So I looked online and started looking a little bit about small business, how they would describe a manager's duties, because really running a library is a little bit like running a small business. There are more facets to running the library than just in a regular classroom. So these definitions come from a small business website. So a manager is responsible for overseeing and supervising activities and employees, and they also keep the work aligned with the goals. An administrator is also part of a librarian's job. An administrator is someone who looks over all aspects of overseeing and supervising the business operations, accounting, finance, project management, and also marketing. So basically, we are the jack of all trades. We are wearing lots of hats and doing lots of different things. We're going to start off with personnel and operations. So one of the challenges that we have is managing substitutes. If when you're gone, you get a substitute, any aides, and that could be adult aides who are working with you, or it could be student aides or volunteers. So as I was looking at this, I kind of divided it down into 4 different steps when you're thinking about managing all these different people that you might work with. So my 4 steps are recruit, train, delegate, and prioritize. If you don't have any volunteers currently, I would encourage you to recruit some volunteers. So there are some different groups of people that you might be able to pull from. I am the only librarian in my district. I have a preschool through 6th grade building and a 7th through 12th grade building. And I have 1 full-time aide. And I have 1 part-time aide who works 8 hours a week, and her 8 hours of the week cover the desk so that I can have plan time and also time for administrative work. In addition to that, we also have some student aides. At the elementary school, the 6th graders are the oldest group in our building. And so a few years ago, I started selecting some 6th graders to be student aides. I give out a job application for them. And so the students who are interested can fill out that job application. And then we are choosing students that we think will be respectful, responsible, have a good eye for detail, all of those sorts of things. So I usually have between 10 and 12 6th graders every year who are my library aides. We also often will have special education students, both at the elementary and at the high school. A lot of times the special ed teacher will say, do you have some jobs in the library that my student could do? I really want to work on job skills, on some things that they could do. So we keep a list of those things that our special ed students could do. Parents, grandparents, retirees, community members, all of them have been good volunteers for me in the past. And I've found especially that pastors love to come in and read to kids. They are very reliable volunteers. They often say, sign me up to come once a week. And they do understand that they're not pushing a religious agenda or anything like that when they come to school, but they just want to make a connection with the community and with the kids. And so that's been a group of people that I've relied on and that have been very faithful volunteers. Sometimes we also get college or high school students who need some community service hours. Sometimes people will come for a limited time. Like I have a college student that contacted me and said, I need 10 hours of community service. So that would be someone who's kind of on a limited basis. If someone's coming for a limited time, I'm not going to spend a lot of time training them to use the checkout computer or those kinds of things. I'm going to find a task that isn't going to take a lot of training, but that they can perform for me. Or it may be somebody that wants to come in on a regular basis. Then when I do my training, I kind of think of that as my boot camp. I want to make sure that I have procedures that are developed so that whenever I have a new aide or a new volunteer or a new staff member, that I'm going to be teaching those same procedures to everyone. So we keep our written instructions handy. We have a bright green sub and volunteer notebook. So when I'm training them, I walk them through the instructions, but then I also say, if you need to look back, it's here in this notebook. As far as substitutes, we look at our sub list and find people who are willing to specifically be trained to work in the library. Besides just teaching classes, we also, of course, have library checkout and things like that. So I found it's really helpful for those people to be trained on shelving and on the library computer check in and check out before they get called to show up in the library. So we've had good luck with finding subs who are willing to do that and who are interested in getting trained ahead of time. Many years ago, someone subbed for my library aide, and she had not ever had any library training, but she followed the notebook, we thought. We later realized that she shelved all day and she checked out all day, but she never checked anything in. Woo, so as you can imagine, there was some cleanup to do with figuring all of that out. So being able to train a sub ahead of time can be a really helpful thing. So I included a link here of what we leave for our computer instructions. We use Destiny, and a lot of you might use Destiny as well. So if you wanted to take a look at this and customize it for your own library, you could, but we include passwords, screenshots, who they need to call if the computer isn't working, all of that kind of thing. Also in our sub notebook, I include a map of the library that kind of spells out where the different sections are. We give shelving instructions for the different areas. The sub notebook also includes emergency procedures. What do you do if there's a tornado drill? What do you do if there is a fire drill? Inside of that sub notebook, we also include a door key in case there would be a lockdown. Then the sub would need to be able to lock the door. Our next step is delegate. And sometimes that's something, especially when I first started out, that was something that was kind of hard for me because I really kind of just wanted to do it myself because I wanted it done a certain way. And then as you get busier and as you're asked to do more with fewer resources and you have fewer staff and a little bit less help, you find out I really do need to delegate. It is okay if this person did not do it exactly like I would do it, and it's okay if they didn't do it perfectly. Another reason to accept help from students and from volunteers is that it builds community. It lets other people in on the services that you're providing in the library, and it makes them feel a part of that community, especially our elementary school students. They absolutely love to help out in the library. So that's another plus of getting some student aides and volunteers in that way. When you have your helpers, you want to find out each person's skill set, when they're available, find out what their talents are, and assign the jobs accordingly. I've had some aides who are very crafty and they love making bulletin boards and fancy displays and all of that kind of thing. I've had other people that if I ask them to make a bulletin board, they look absolutely terrified, and that is not their thing. So you kind of have to get to know people and feel them out, find out what they like to do, what they're good at, and assign those jobs accordingly. Sometimes I've had parent helpers who loved to prepare things at home. So for example, we were doing a multicultural unit and I wanted all of our kids to be able to play the game Mancala, and I found some instructions on how to make a Mancala game, and you just use egg cartons and stones. And this parent was very excited about being able to make a classroom set of Mancala boards for me, and she loved doing those things at home just on her own time. Or she would prepare bulletin board materials. She would cut things out. So some people may want to work at home. Some people, all they want to do is read out loud to kids. So I only call them when I need somebody to read out loud to kids. Some people say, I'll do anything. I'll make copies. I will put up the bulletin board. So it's really important when you're using your staff to find out their availability and what they're good at and what they're willing to do. I think it's also really great to have an official written job description for all of your staff. And I included the job descriptions that we use. It's good just to have clear expectations for who does what. There are some things that we all do, but there are some things that we have kind of a division of labor. This is a project that this person does every time, and that's kind of their baby, and that's what they're in charge of. I also think that having these written job descriptions can be helpful if someone was ever thinking of cutting one of your staff members. You could show them this list and say, these are all of the things that they do. And again, because so many of our tasks in the library are hidden tasks and kind of behind the scenes tasks, I think sometimes people might be surprised to see all of the things that are going on. And so if you were to show them this official job description, they might say, oh gosh, I didn't realize that these were tasks being performed by that person. I can see why this person is important on your staff. I'm going to look for a different way to save money. Prioritizing is another important aspect. So when I have an aide or a volunteer, I want to let them know which jobs should be done first. So I have kind of my default priority list. The people always come first. So if someone comes into the library and they need help, that's always the first thing that we do. We drop whatever we're doing to serve our patrons. If we don't have any patrons that are needing help at the moment, we can work on shelving. If we have any special projects going on, we would do that there under number 3. And then for number 4, if there are no projects, there are jobs that we call always jobs. And those are things like straightening the shelves, checking on the cart of art supplies. Do the colored pencils need sharpened? Do the pencils need sharpened? Dusting, straightening shelves, different things like that. If there's something that comes up and I want them to override this usual priority list, I will leave them a note or let them know. Our people always comes first, but instead of shelving books for number 2, here's the next most important thing that I want you to work on today. All right, now we're moving on from talking about working with library staff and volunteers to working with our colleagues. So my first suggestion in working with colleagues is to find out what's going on in their classroom and suggest or find ways that you can support that. If you've sent an email saying, please tell me what you're doing, and the teacher doesn't respond, you can ask students, what's going on in science? What are you guys reading right now in language arts? I will also notice what is posted, what student work is posted outside of their classrooms. And there have been a couple of different times where I have noticed what's posted, noticed projects that they're doing, and then talk to the teacher about how could we extend that or support that in the library. So I have a couple of examples of that. Our third grade teachers do a pumpkin book character project every year. So they buy small pumpkins for students, and they make it kind of a take-home project where the student is supposed to choose a book character and decorate their pumpkin to look like that book character. And then they bring it back to school and it's on display. So I saw that they had done that, and I visited with the third grade teachers and said, what if in library class we added a technology component to that? So they were very supportive of that. So we had the students write a book review over the book that their pumpkin was representing. And then we used iPads and took pictures of all the pumpkins. And then kids used the app Chatterpix to record their book review. And when you use Chatterpix, you use your finger to draw a line across the mouth of the book character on the pumpkin, so it looks like the book character pumpkin is talking. So we started that a couple of years ago, and the students really enjoy it. The teachers really enjoy that. And that all came about just because I noticed something that they were already doing, and I figured out a way that we could extend that through the library. I also have a grade that every year in January for Kansas Day, the kids do research on famous Kansans and they create a poster. And I had noticed when I saw some of the posters displayed in the hallway that it looked like some of the kids had Googled their famous Kansan, printed off part of a web page, cut it out, and slapped it on a poster. So that, of course, is not real research. So I went to the teachers and I said, when you give the kids the names of their famous Kansan, what if we started in library class and I got them started on their research? So they came in and we worked on writing out research questions ahead of time. What is it that we want to find out about our famous Kansan? So we wrote down questions that we wanted answered, and then I helped them get started in their research and writing down the answers in their own words so that the poster became a reflection of what they had learned about their person, not what Google had spit out about their person. So that was another good way to make a connection. My next tip is eat lunch with colleagues, at least sometimes. I know some people work through lunch, or you need lunch as a downtime, or sometimes people are running errands. But eating lunch is a good informal time just to have some face-to-face time with your colleagues and find out what they're doing. Participate in any social events, snacks in the workroom, kinds of things. It's really important to build relationships and build connections with people. I feel like, especially when I first started as librarian, I felt like I don't have time to go down and do the social hour. I'm busy doing things in the library and getting stuff done. But I came to learn that participating in the social events is a really important part of my job because I'm building relationships and connections with those teachers. So even though it might have felt to me like I wasn't getting work done, building those relationships is an important part of my work. Ask for input about library purchases. Whenever we get new teachers and staff, I always schedule a face-to-face meeting, and I try to keep it very brief, but I invite them into the library. I tailor the training specifically to that staff member. So whatever I think that they will be using in the library, I let them know about that. I give them a paper handout. So that makes sure that I'm making a personal connection. I know that at least once they have walked in my door and that I have let them know what we have available to them. Another valuable way to reach out to colleagues is to connect with one of your specials teacher, your counselor, your art, music, PE teacher, even your food service personnel. Think about how you could reach out to them and you could work together. An example of that is a couple of years ago when the Olympics were going on, the Winter Olympics were going on, our PE teacher did this huge Olympics theme, and she had students doing games in PE that were modeled off of Olympic games. And so I piggybacked on that in the library. She didn't ask me to, but we did story times and we did different activities that featured the Olympics as well. Our food service coordinator once a year does a theme day, just kind of for fun. So one year she picked cowboy as their theme. So they pick a day in January where they invite everyone in the school to dress up to match that theme, and they serve a menu that matches that theme. So when they did cowboy, I made sure that our story times were on a cowboy theme. And she's also been really gracious when we want to do green eggs and ham. She's gone out of her way to make sure that that's a lunch that all of the kids get to try, and we've had a lot of fun with that. My advice for working with administrators: let them know what's going on in the library, but short visual summaries are the best. And I think I've improved on that over the years. I'm a wordy person. I like to tell people all the things, but they don't want to know all the things. So I've learned to make kind of a highlight reel, and I've really tried to use infographics as much as I can. I think that people are more likely to read and absorb the information you're giving them if it's short and snappy and visual. So I have made much improvement on that in the last few years. Let them know if there's something that you need. And I try to make sure to go to my administrators with a need pretty rarely. I think that if I'm in their office every week asking for something, that I'm more likely to get tuned out. But if I really need something and I go and talk to them about it, they're very receptive and to work with me on that. Invite them to come and visit the library when you have a special program going on or a special event. Invite them to read to a class. Emphasize how the library is directly supporting student learning. Volunteer to be on committees, and make sure to remind them and show them that you are a real teacher. I think organizing your physical space can really help you out as well with having those procedures that everybody learns and follows, and it helps things to run more smoothly. Setting up procedures and routines for your students, your teachers, your library staff. At the beginning of the year, it can take a lot of time to teach that and to get all those routines down, but then your year is going to run a lot more smoothly. For my elementary school, I made a little photo album that shows just some of my areas and how I have my library and my classroom area set up. So for my teaching area, I have a computer connected to a smart board, and I also have a document camera. So my document camera can be hooked up to the smart board, or I also have a TV in my story time area, so I can move my document camera over to where the TV is as well. Over here on the right where you see these bookshelves, this is where I store my class materials. So I make copies for my lessons for each grade, and that goes in these bins. For my older students, sometimes we carry over a lesson from one week to another. So I collect their papers at the end of class, and if we're going to finish it again the next week, I store that over here. This shelf is my Plan B shelf. So if the internet's not working or something like that, I have all of these no technology games and activities that are always ready to go. As far as bulletin boards, I only have one bulletin board that I change out regularly. The others are more instructional and they stay up the whole year. So I have a William Allen White board, I change the posters that has the current list. I change that yearly, but other than that, all of those materials stay the same. And this is my bulletin board with my class procedures, our program goals, our mission statement, all of those kinds of things. This is our area where our preschool and kindergarten kind of start out with some book bins and some things. So we teach them that wherever there's a red star, that is their special place to check out. And we have some books in that area with favorite characters like Clifford or Curious George and things like that. A nonfiction area, I really try to have a lot of signage up for kids when I'm teaching them how to find books by call numbers and things like that. I teach them that the library signage is kind of like a street sign to show you where to go. And we have a big genre wall over by our student computer area. This is our fiction and everybody books. So the fiction are the shelves that are here in the middle of the floor. The everybody books are against the windows. So I like having certain sections in different areas. If they're looking for an everybody book, I can say those are going to be the shelves over by the windows, and they know where to go for that. These are the story steps where the kids will sit for a story time. And then this is our TV that we have, and I also have a portable marker board as well over there. This is our circulation desk. We have an indoor and an outdoor as well. This bulletin board that's by the indoor, that's the one that I change monthly. But otherwise, the bulletin boards stay up pretty much all year. Over by the outdoor, I have some display shelves, and there's where I'm going to display my seasonal books. So this shows Halloween time, but right now we have our Thanksgiving books up, and then it will change out for Christmas. If it's not necessarily a holiday, I'll just pick a theme, like it might be dogs or it might be trucks or something like that. I have an author's bulletin board that I keep adding to as I meet new authors, and the kids have a lot of fun looking for authors that they know up on that board. This is where I keep my read alouds and some class materials. This out in the hall looking into the library. So I always keep a library schedule so people can see these are when classes happen, these are when checkouts happen, and then my monthly calendar of special things that are going on. I have a little marker board here, and when kids put books on hold, when their book comes in, I write their name on the marker board so they'll know to come in and grab that. These are some signs that I sometimes put out in the hall. I don't do that all the time, but it's just a way to briefly let people know what it is that you're studying or talking about in the library. So it has my K through 5 classes, and I can put up which month it is and just kind of summarize what it is that we're working on or talking about currently. As far as library cards, the younger kids, 4th grade and below, they all keep those in their classroom. Our 5th and 6th graders keep their library cards in the library, and these little wooden holders, they have little slots that let the cards stand up. Our high school shop teacher made those several years ago. The 5th and 6th graders keep their library cards in the library because they're more departmentalized. So they all go to, just one of the 6th grade teachers teaches science to all of the 6th graders, and they move around to different teachers for reading groups and things like that. So they may not be in their homeroom whenever they come to check out a book. Underneath the circulation desk, I have a bin, and one is for books that need repair, and one is for books that need cleaning. So my adult library assistant does all of our book repair, and cleaning is one of those tasks that I have for students that are helpers. They like to help clean the books. And this is a screenshot from our sub notebook that gives some of the procedures and things. On the desk, I always print out a list of special classes that are happening, and then we get a weekly calendar from the office, and we tape that down as well. So there you can see the subfolder. On the clipboard, we have our daily schedule, and then we have phone numbers, and then just other things that we use real often are in those trays. And there you can see our library map and part of our shelving instructions. More shelving instructions. Here's the key on the lanyard that's inside the sub notebook in case they would need to lock the door. Some more signage. Bulletin board materials. I have a big organizer for them, and some of it is organized by month. So Halloween and fall and Thanksgiving and things like that. And then I also have a separate one that's authors and characters like Pete the Cat or things like that. And then something that I really love is my art supplies cart. So I have pencils, colored pencils, crayons, scissors, glue, all of those kinds of things. So I can roll it into my office when we're not using it so things don't walk away. But then whenever I want to use it, I can roll it out. I can roll it directly to the different tables or wherever it is that I want to set it out. And then time management prioritizing. This is always a big challenge. I must confess that, of course, I struggle with this area just like anyone else does, but here are some of my tools that I use that really help me out. I have a monthly library management calendar that's just kind of my plan. And you know, plans don't always go perfectly, different things come up, but it's good to at least have a plan. So this is just how things kind of have shaken down at our library. I know different people's are going to look different, and ours may even change up a little bit from year to year, depending on what's going on. But I sat down and kind of wrote out, here are the things that we do during different specific months of the year. And I've basically found that the beginning of school until October is really pretty busy. But then once November hits, between November and March, that's when I really have time to dig into a big project. Like if I'm doing weeding, when I'm working on inventory, if I want to apply for grants. It's that November to March time period where I'm not so busy with other things, and that is a good time for me to do projects. And then in April and May, it just gets really busy again. So the flow of things for your library may be different, but it really helped me to kind of sketch out, here are the main things that I really do pretty much throughout the year during these months. And it helped me really kind of plan things out, even if I knew that it may not work out perfectly as I had planned. It's good to have a plan. We also work a lot with checklists. So we have a checklist for, here are the things that happen at the beginning of the year, and then the things that definitely happen at the end of the year. So it just helps us to walk through that. And then I try to visit with my library aides at least weekly, saying, okay, which of these tasks are we currently working on? Which one would be next in the priority, so that we are communicating about that. We also try to create checklists for any tasks that are going to get repeated a lot, such as new book processing. Here are all of the things that are happening when we process a new book, so you can walk through all of those steps. I also try to make a list of projects and goals for the year. So I did this one, I think 2 years ago. I have maybe half of these things done, and part of them I'm still working on right now. So again, these projects, this is what I'm looking at doing between November and March. If I want to move any sections, if there's something that I want to change. It's nice to make a list of that and to kind of have that in front of me to know this is my goal, this is what I'm working on. And for me anyway, this was more than I could get done in 1 year, and that's okay. I also really rely on a couple of different technology tools because I am shared between 2 different schools. I use quite a few different computers. I think I counted it up. There are 5 different computers that I use on a pretty regular basis. So 2 tools that I really like a lot, one is Symbaloo and one is Diigo. Symbaloo is an account that you can create, and then each one of these little boxes that you see on here is a link to a website that I use pretty regularly. Then I can log into Symbaloo on whatever device I'm using, and I have all of my links right there under my fingers. That makes them really easy to get to. Diigo is another tool that I use a lot, and it's for bookmarking, because before I was able to save my bookmarks, basically it lets you save your bookmarks in the cloud and get to them anywhere. Before I was able to do that, I would think, okay, what computer was I on when I bookmarked this? And I want to go back to it. This lets me sign into Diigo. I can bookmark the website, and I love that I can tag it. So I can tag it digital citizenship, or I can tag it easy reader book list. And then later when I want to go back to it, I go to my Diigo page and I can type in digital citizenship, and it will show me all the pages that I've bookmarked with that tag. All right, moving on to number 2, managing the collection. For collection development, I think one of the challenges is keeping up with popular series. One thing that I have done is on Amazon, you can sign up for author alerts. So if you'll go to Amazon and search for a specific author, you click on that author's name and you'll go to their author page, and there's a button on there that says follow. So for example, I'm on Rick Riordan's author alerts. So when he has something new coming out, I get an email about that. Permabound also has a feature that's called Series Tracker. So when a new book is coming out, they will let you know about that. I order from Follett quite a bit, and so I use Tidal Wave. And within Tidal Wave, they have a menu. I gave all the instructions right there to get to something called Next Book in the Series. So some of those really popular series, they're showing you this big list of things that are coming up. And I also use my Scholastic catalog quite a bit. They're always going to let me know whenever a new Wimpy Kid's coming out and all that kind of thing that I need to watch for. When I am working on collection development, I try to prioritize and choose an area of focus. Sometimes it can be overwhelming. So for example, at one time I picked biographies. I thought our biographies are really old. And so I decided I was going to focus on biographies. Other things I've focused on, one time I wanted to get more sports books. There was another time where I really wanted to get some really good beginning readers, like at about a 1st grade reading level and things like that. So of course, I'm always going to get the new William Allen Whites. I'm going to get the next book of popular series, but then I try to focus, kind of pick an area or 2 of focus when I'm doing collection development. I also try to set aside funds to replace some popular titles that are in poor condition. So a couple of years ago, I replaced all my Chronicles of Narnia because they were in bad shape. This past year, my Harry Potters were absolutely falling apart and in terrible shape, and so I replaced all of those. School Library Journal has really excellent lists when it comes to collection development. There's also a tool from Follett that's called TitleWise Collection Analysis. It's something that's free. I'm going to get out of my presentation here and pull up my TitleWise analysis. So you have to have an account with TitleWise and you have to upload all of your MARC records to them. But then you're able to access all of these really great statistics and this great information about your collection. So I uploaded this last year, and this was for my elementary school. So it shows me how many items are in my collection, what is the average age. I can see fiction versus nonfiction. It will show me my Dewey classes, how many items I have in each of those, what is the average age. And then I like this option where it says dig into the Dewey divisions by tens. So I can see what these topics are. I can see the average age, how many books I have that were published in these different decades. If it's gray, that means I don't have any books on that particular topic. And so because I'm in elementary school, it's probably okay. I don't have any metaphysics books, but this would be a good way to see, do I have any holes in my collection? Is there anything in here that's gray that maybe I should have something on? And I can click, like if I wanted to see this political science. Well, I have 3 that are from the 90s. I'm thinking, gosh, is that kind of old? Should I get rid of them? I want to see what these 3 titles are. I can click on the 3 and it will show me what they are. And then any of these lists that it gives you, if you want, you can export it to Excel. So then you could sort things and work with the data that way. If there are any of these topics that you think, oh gosh, I think I need to purchase some more political science, for example, where it says search for, I can click that. And now I'm here in Tidal Wave. They have the Dewey range set for me, and I can add whatever interest level or reading level that I want and search and see what Follett has available. So of course, they're hoping that you're going to spend some money with them, but I think this is a really great tool for collection development, for looking at what you need. If you're working on asking for extra funding or working on a grant proposal, this is some really good data to have. So that's a free service that they offer. Weeding, whenever you're weeding, see what is used. Don't get rid of teacher favorites. I learned that early on. Sometimes there might be a book that looks kind of old, but it's the teacher's favorite and they use it every year. And so make sure that you are leaving that for them to be able to use. Your automation software will give you some really good reports. So I included a link if you use Destiny. This is my favorite report to use whenever I'm weeding. I have, it's always hard to know what to do with your weeded materials. So this link gives you some suggestions on that. When you're looking at weeding guidelines, the best thing that I've seen that is really succinct is this brochure here called Musty. So it talks about getting rid of things that are misleading, ugly, superseded, trivial, or your collection has no use for it. And then it gives the different Dewey classifications and gives you suggestions of how old should that book be. Now, of course, we all know that budgets are tight, and so you can't always 100% stick to that. You know, I have a whole lot of books that are more than 10 to 15 years old, but in general, it lets you, gives you kind of a starting place for that. So I thought this little 2-page brochure was a nice resource. And then if you want something that's really detailed, there is the CREW method as well. When you're doing inventory, you can do a partial inventory or a full inventory. A lot of people weed at the same time. You can do it during the school year or at the end of the school year. I actually do it during the school year, and my aides and volunteers do it. When I inherited this position, that was the way that it had been done in the past. And I actually like that, having aides and volunteers do it. So I do the weeding and I do that separately. I don't necessarily weed all the sections in both libraries every year. I try to do at least some weeding every year, but I take advantage of my aides and helpers with doing the inventory. With my budget, I always keep copies of my requisitions, and I keep track of my spending with a little budget spreadsheet. It's a very simple one. It's not fancy. It doesn't have fancy formulas or anything like that. But if you wanted to see what I use, it's just an easy way to keep track of things, and it's a good thing to show to administrators as well if they're wondering how you're spending. Okay, our next section is communications and marketing. So to me, the most important thing to share with people is your library services. They need to know what you have available in order to take advantage of that. So you want to always make sure that you're promoting your menu of library services, your ebook and digital audiobook information if you have that, online databases. You cannot post your passwords online, but I learned this trick and I thought this was really cool. I did not figure this out myself, but borrowed this idea from another librarian. You can't post the passwords online, but you can create a link to a Google Doc that students and staff can access through their login. So even if the library's not open, they could click on this link that's on your web page and use their Google login and get to all of your passwords. That's something that I probably never would have thought of, but I thought that's a really smart thing because that's removing a barrier to access. If they think, oh, I don't know that password, I'm not going to use this resource. But that gives them a way to get hold of those passwords even if the library is not open. This is what we use at the junior high and high school for our library services menu. I recently redesigned this and it's a lot more friendly, I think, because it's less wordy and it's divided into these sections. So we have one for students and we have one for staff as well. And then this is what we use to promote our online resources. We have it all on one page. Every teacher has a printed one of these in their classroom. One thing that some people struggle with is sharing their success. I think sometimes they feel like it's bragging if I'm talking about all the things that I'm doing in the library, but it really is important for you to show people how the library space and how the library materials are being used. Share any projects and programs. If you can include photos of students using the library and resources, that's a really important thing. I just recently went to an infographic for my year-end report. I guarantee you that a lot more people are reading this than the 2 pages of text that I used to send out. It was way too many details. So now I'm telling how many books were circulated, how many things were added. Here's a little list of our events. Here are some statistics. This was our grant funding and our book fair earnings. Here are, I don't put in every collaboration, but I highlight a few of our classroom library collaborations and community partnerships. So this is an area that I have improved on, I feel like, in the last couple of years. And I also went to an infographic for sharing our book fair results as well. I feel like that makes a lot more impact than all of my paragraphs of text. Sometimes less is more. With your library website, it's a really good thing, in my opinion, to include your library mission statement and your program goals, and I also post that in the library. When we started a STEM program recently, I updated my mission statement because it needed to reflect what we were doing. So anytime I spend money, ask for some money, write a grant, that needs to align to my mission and to my program goals. So I try to make sure that that is visible both in my physical space and also online as well. I definitely want to include links to my online resources and things like that. So this is my grade school library webpage. So of course, links to Destiny, to AR Book Finder. Then this next row is all access to ebooks. The next row is all research resources, and then research tips, creating a bibliography, those kinds of things. Other ways to communicate: through email, through newspaper articles, newsletters, and social media. I also wanted to put in a plug for the KASL Advocacy Toolkit. It has templates and things that you can customize for your library for things like articles, infographics, information to share with students, staff, and parents. So take a look at that if you are interested. And our last section is lifelong learning. Professional development. This is a big question. How can I stay informed of new trends, technology, books? It feels very overwhelming because there are so many things out there. So my number one tip for you is to join KASL if you don't already belong, or other professional organizations. For professional reading, I feel overwhelmed sometimes because there are so many things out there. So I decided I'm going to choose two things. I'm going to choose two. One is a newsletter and one is a blog. And those are the two things that I'm going to try to keep up on. I'm not going to try to read everything that every wonderful person writes because there just isn't time. So that doesn't mean I never read an article that doesn't come from this source, but I felt like it was more manageable to choose just two. Visiting another library, taking photos, asking questions is a great way to learn. Find a mentor. Your regional library system has awesome free or low-cost trainings, and the state library also provides wonderful trainings as well. I included a link to their archived webinars. What I will often do is I'll take a professional development day, either a half a day or a full day, and I will barricade myself in the school conference room and I will watch several of the webinars. That has ended up working for me rather than finding an hour here, an hour there whenever the webinars are happening live. So that's a strategy that has helped me, to even just getting a half day to watch those webinars and get updated. A teacher at our school shared with me John Gordon's Positive Teacher Pledge, and I've printed that out and have it near my desk. It's easy to feel sometimes stressed out, overwhelmed, overworked, not enough help. And so sometimes I find myself being kind of negative and kind of complaining. So that's when I need to take a look at that Positive Teacher Pledge, and it's just very encouraging words. Two of my favorite items on that Positive Teacher Pledge are: when I am surrounded by pessimism, I will choose optimism. I believe I'm here for a reason, and my purpose is greater than my challenges. I think those are two really good thoughts that kind of keep me going when things are rough. And please remember that what you do makes a difference, and keep up the good work, librarians. You are awesome people, and I am proud to call you my colleagues. So here are some resources, and here is my contact information. Does anyone have any questions?
Nothing came up on the chat, so I guess you answered everything.
Okay, thank you all so much for coming. I appreciate it very much and hope that you were able to walk away with some new information today.